Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to take a look again at the planets. You may remember from a previous video that we're going to have quite a few planets visible over the course of the month of August, particularly in the morning. Here we've got Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn all together. If you're in the know, then you know that Uranus is up around here, and Neptune is just around over here as well. If you have a telescope or big enough binoculars, they are there. As we come through to the end of the month of August, once the sun starts to rise, we will get Mercury coming into the sky as well. Just about, I may have to bring us back a little bit there to get Mercury into the sky. There we go. There's Mercury just a little after the end of August, and there we go. Just at the end of August, there's Mercury, very close to the horizon, just about visible. So we do have quite a few planets visible in the sky. There is, of course, one more, Venus, which we are missing from here in Ireland. So taking a look at the sky here during the day, we'll get rid of the atmosphere, and there's Venus. It certainly looks a good distance from the sun. There at the end of August, it will be pulling back towards the beginning of August, and for the early part of the month at least, it is there. And Venus is technically above the horizon as the sun sets. Now, of course, with our view here, there's a tree in the way, but you can just about see the edge of Venus there and the sun crossing the horizon. Now, I usually give our view of the sky with this sort of real picture. This is a real location in France, and these are real trees, real buildings, because there are very few locations on Earth where you will get a perfect flat horizon the whole way around. Of course, as you have seen in previous videos, we are not limited to the Earth here. Not only can we look at the sky from other planets, we can look at the sky from other locations, even hypothetical ones. So this is a perfectly flat horizon. This is a perfectly flat horizon, bang on where we would see the horizon. No buildings, no trees, no nothing. And we can see there for sure the sun is under the horizon and Venus is still up. We'll bring it even closer. Once I turn back on the atmosphere, well, from here in Ireland, maybe just about, you can see a bright dot there for Venus, but it will still be very much swamped by the light of the sunset. Now, this would be better in the countryside, but it's still very, very difficult. And as we push forward, I'll bring us back a little bit here. It gets easier and easier as we move through the month, so we can see that happening here, hopefully. You can see that Venus appears to be sinking down in the sky, but that's only because the sunsets and everything will continue to get earlier and earlier. But Venus is, over the course of this period, moving a little bit away from the sun, which is going to give it longer in our sky for each of these evenings. So, for example, here, it's a little bit higher above the horizon. It's a little bit further from the west. So let's pop back to a pretty good sky. Let's pop back to a real sky. I believe it's Garaines there. Yep, just next to the Beaujolais Mountains, where we get the wine. And yeah, okay, so even in this quite nice sky, it's quite a low horizon. There's only a few little distant hills in this tree, but Venus is pretty much completely blocked. This was a problem recently, just a couple of months ago, for Mercury. When Mercury was visible in the evening, it was very difficult to spot from here in Ireland because of the angle of the ecliptic. We can get rid of that issue by moving closer to the equator. The closer you are to the equator, the higher these things are going to appear in the sky. So we're going to go pretty far south for here in Europe. We're going to go closer to the equator, but not all the way to it. Just down there, just around the bottom of Spain and Portugal, in the kind of line of the Mediterranean here. This would also bring you in line with the United States and I guess just the top of Central and East Asia here, not quite down towards Southeast Asia. But this is definitely closer to the equator. That means there's not going to be as drastic of a difference between the times of sunset and sunrise between summer and winter. Closer you are to the equator, the less those things will vary. And here we are, Venus comfortably above this, again, quite kind horizon. If you're deep in the bottom of a valley or you're surrounded by tall buildings or trees, even quite close to the equator, this could still be difficult to catch. But let's bring ourselves back as we move back towards the start of August, we're going to have to push later because we're moving back in time here towards summer. That's going to make the sunsets appear to get earlier and earlier, so we'll have to push later for darkness, and you can see that Venus isn't going to be visible quite as high in the sky, but even here, quite close to the beginning of the month, Venus is above the horizon once you're down to this latitude. So let's move around and take a look to the morning sky, because the morning time planets will look a little bit more impressive from this lower latitude as well. It's also going to bring Mercury into the sky that little bit earlier. So let's push forward. And by bringing Mercury into the sky earlier, I mean earlier in the month. So here we are, quite early in the month. We'll start pushing forward towards the end. Now, of course, we may have to move. There we go. There's Mercury. We'll push back a little bit just to see how early we're getting Mercury in the month. So I think, yeah, it's pretty tough to spot even here. We're not too close to the equator. There's Mercury, just barely visible. So it should be visible by the end of the month still from this location, but not much before it. Of course, Mercury is going to end up stretching about that far from the sun, so we will get to see it, or you will get to see it a little bit longer if you're that close to the equator. I unfortunately am not. Jupiter and Mars will be lovely and high in the sky, as will Saturn. Being closer to the equator matters for planets that are close to the sun in the sky. And of course, Venus and Mercury will always be planets that are close to the sun in the sky. So let's take one more hop just a little bit closer to the equator if we can. We'll move right down to here. Again, we're a few degrees north of the equator here, but this does bring us down, down into the southern United States, past that into Central America, and over into India and the beginnings of Southeast Asia over here. So you will, if you are a human living on this planet Earth, statistically, you're living in some of the higher populated areas. So this should hopefully cover a large portion of the human race in terms of what you're going to see. So to make it nice and even, we'll come right back to the beginning of the month, and we will see what's visible as the sun goes down. Now, we are just a little bit off the equator here, so although the angle at which you will see the planets, it should be true whether you're 16 degrees north or 16 degrees south, that here, in the very beginning of the month of August, Venus is visible for a reasonable stretch of time in the evening. It's just starting to come up there, just as we come up to 22:07, and then it stays visible right up until about 7 o'clock. So we've got a good 20 minutes there with Venus in the sky, and this is quite close to the beginning of the month. If we start moving later in the month, coming all the way through, you can see that it's still there while the sky is getting reasonably dark. So by the end of August, Venus will definitely be a target for a telescope. You'll have sufficient darkness. Seeing Venus, okay, we'll put it back so it's barely visible. I do want to be fair and make sure it's visible even in a smaller video player. So there we go. There's Venus, and we're seeing it here at just about 20 past 6, 24 minutes past 6, and 50 seconds. But we don't need to be too precise. About 20 past 6. There's Venus, and it's staying with us until the sky gets quite dark, until at least 7 o'clock here. So a good half an hour with Venus visible in the sky, and that's it's still a bit above the horizon. If we move ourselves again to the zero horizon, that simulated perfect flatness. If you were standing on a big enough salt plain or floating in the middle of the ocean with no land around you, then this would be achievable. But of course, those are pretty extreme circumstances. So we can see Venus there still above this perfect zero horizon as late as 7:30 at the end of the month. Moving all the way around to morning time, there's Saturn over there. Turning around to here, there's the moon. And Mercury coming up. Mercury starting to come up if you've got truly nothing blocking your horizon. There's Mercury starting to come up at about 5, and then continuing to stay in the sky, being visible up until about, here. This is from the city. If you're in the countryside, you'll have a little bit longer. But this is here, just 5:15. And if we start moving back, of course, Mercury is still going to disappear pretty early. So I guess it doesn't matter too much where you are. Mercury is going to be pretty tricky to see. It won't get too far from the sun. Of course, it never does. But for Venus, at least, if you are in a different location to Ireland, you may be in with just a slightly better chance of getting to see that planet. The evening star In this case, it will be the evening star for August, the brightest star, the brightest thing we see in the sky besides the sun and the moon, the brightest thing that is out at night. So that is us back to a more natural, reasonable looking horizon, and back to the south of Ireland here. So if you are going on holidays, if you're trying to escape the coming fall or autumn by going south to warmer climes, then that might bring Venus into your sky if it's not visible from your latitude at the moment. If you're doing so, then I do hope you get to see Venus. If you're staying in the northern latitudes, at least you now know why you're not getting to see it. I do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like it. If you'd like to read a little bit of this information, you can head to my website, queevinscontent.ie, and if you'd like to see more from my channel, then please do consider subscribing. Otherwise, I hope to see you next time.